your reaction?
No, she was able to still slap me around, so.
Oh, peppered her up there. You slap some more, you know she's got a reaction.
She got juiced up and
That's why I didn't go over. I heard she got the second one, I just want her to hit me too.
Have a shot here.
Yes, we're having them here. And here, we're gonna set up after this meeting, maybe a privacy screen over there. So if anyone wants to be placed on standby.
How like our outside school coaches are, they try to get a shot. And then some of them might be between by
Stream is on.
Hopefully they're opening up.
Right on the clock.
Places, but the thing is, like, coming up, and they said it was on Tuesday, they're gonna have it, well, by the way, sorry, Phil. I mean, people found out about it and it was gone.
Okay, I got 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order, stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need approved meeting minutes, January 19th, 2021, regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Audit Finance Committee meeting, 2/4/2021.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence, no correspondence this month. Financial approvals, any questions on the bills?
I have two quick ones. Warrant 829, 4 of 9, that is page 4 of 9. Just the tuition Hope Falls schools that special needs.
Yep,
It says first installment.
yep, that's half of it.
Okay. That's for the year then.
Yeah, the fast for the
And 6 of 9, the SEI, that's same warrant, 829. And for SEI, $6,750. Just wondering, what is their total outlay to date for the planning that's going into this project? And you don't need to give me an answer tonight.
Okay.
Unless you won't.
If I don't have to, I won't look it up. I'll wait and I'll email you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I keep it there too, so I'll just email you the morning.
Just going back to the tuition at Little Falls. So do we still have special needs school children at Johnstown and the Hospital Shepherd?
We have 2 in Johnstown and we have none at Bonner.
And our bus transportation for them is working out well?
As far as I know, it has worked out well because this year we only have 2 students going to Gloversville, and neither one requires an aide or monitor on the bus, so we're able to use our own vehicle to transport. And I imagine we'll be able to do that next year unless there's some sort of change in staffing, because I anticipate only having 1 student there.
We don't have anybody at Poland anymore? Didn't
Nope.
use-
The programs that were at Poland, both has kind of consolidated those.
To Jarvis and Ilion?
They're in the road.
Yeah, they're in the road and Jarvis.
I will say, Bob, I got a note from Joe today. I'm going to talk to him about it tomorrow. Johnstown has a student who lives on Helmer who now has to go to that program, and they're asking would we transport them. So his concern is going to be, are we going to be able to keep them separate enough for the 6 feet in our van, and then it's going to have to go to the bus. So I'll have to just let you know what happens about that, because I do not want to have to run one of our buses and change everything that we have. I really don't remember the number, but it was a significant savings eliminating contracting through Little Falls Fonda Bus or whatever company we use, and doing our own driver with the van. And I don't want to see that go away. I want that to continue, especially because I'm pretty sure it would help Michelle again next year.
But as Michelle said, unless the IEP changes so that that student needs in another body, then we have to go back to Dolgeville Fonda, correct?
We don't have to, no.
Oh.
Part of our thought.
We'd have to go to a bus.
We'd have to go to a bus instead of the van. And I like I said, I'm gonna talk to Joe tomorrow. I don't know if we have a spare bus
We do.
that driver could run, but it'll be up to him to tell me that, yes, he could do that.
Okay.
So I'll have to let you know. I won't know till after tomorrow.
I did email him as soon as I got that, and he said we do have a spare bus if we need to.
All right, but I told him I'd talk to him tomorrow at our meeting.
Thank you.
Also, I have an update, I did pull it up, we've just over $20,000 spent so far on the capital project since we started the process. And that's through January 5th, so that bill is not included in that.
Now, I'm fast forwarding, and I shouldn't do that. I'll wait for you to do the presentation.
Okay.
Now, that's the question. Thank you.
Welcome.
Treasurer's report, any questions on treasurer's report? Extra classroom report for the second
One
quarter.
quick question. Our account balances, when will we get that transfer over to capital funds? Now that the SED has approved that?
Right, as soon as SPG's approval, now we go out to bond.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on the extra classroom report? If there are no questions, need a motion to approve the financials as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Budget presentation, Mrs. Radley.
Hey, Jesse.
I'm gonna present, okay? Hopefully
Yeah.
I don't lose you,
Okay.
okay? I'm gonna do exactly what Matt said.
All right.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay. Okay. So as of February
Thank
9th,
you.
where are we in the budget process? Currently, all departments have turned in their estimated expenses and wish lists for next school year. I actually haven't added those wish lists to the budget as of yet. What I've currently done to our budget, thank you. What I've,
Hold the volume up button and turn it back on.
is it blinking? I'm not.
Throw it on the floor, that always helps you, Ray.
I'm breaking everything today. Ask Mrs. Sandy and Mrs. Riga. I broke the printer.
What about when you?
I broke it. I know. I'm telling you. It's been one of those days for me. Oh, we're good. We're
You're
good.
on a short leash, girl.
I know. I can't really move around here. And I gotta be close to the laptop so that.
She looks like Vanna White.
What do you like, one standard, so you?
There. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Better? Okay. What do you want me to do? Okay, so, this is just a starting point. The reason why I didn't include the folders as of yet is because I had Finance Committee last Thursday, and I didn't really want the numbers to change so much by this date, so that we kind of were on the same page with Finance Committee. Also, with just the contractual salary increases that we're obligated to, and a starting point of an estimated 3% on our BOCES costs, you'll see further on that we're a little bit above what our revenues are anyway. and we're really trying to stay as flat with our expenses as possible this year. So we just have a little bit of talking to do administratively, and we'll talk about that as we go. So as you can see, BOCES contractual costs are currently estimated at 3%. State aid estimates are, this is just the first run, and we're going to go over state aid, which I didn't do last year, but because of the changes with the state aid, I did want to just touch on it really quick. And then, of course, we still have the board and the administrative discussions and additions that we got to talk about coming up in the next few weeks. And then I just remind you that this is just a projected budget. We're in the very beginning stages, so a lot of this stuff will change by the next time you see it. The next step for the community and the board will discuss the budget over the next couple months. We'll prepare a finished budget, and then the board will adopt the finished budget on April 20th, and then there will be a budget hearing on May 11th. Okay, so this is a little screenshot of our estimated revenues compared to last year's budget, or this current year's budget, I'm sorry. So you can see the real property taxes are going up a little bit. I'm using the tax cap of 3.7%. That's a discussion, again, that hasn't been had yet at the board level, so I'm just using that as an estimate. Star, you can see that there's a decrease. We're noticing constant decrease over the last couple years. New York State is doing some changing on their end with a check sent out to residents instead of getting a discount on a tax bill. But mostly because of the New York State property values decreasing, primary residences are decreasing, and the senior discount, there's a cutoff by income level. There's a lot of different factors that weigh into that star revenue. So we're just seeing over time that this is kind of being cut back a little bit. This is what our first run of our state aid looks like, and a lot of it is the same, and I just picked up here what has changed. Services aid, this line right here, you'll see 1.8. That's a combination of the expense-driven aids that the governor's been really pushing towards the last couple of years to do like a block aid, a formulated aid, instead of your expense-driven aids. So that would include your transportation aid, your BOCES aid, some of our biggest aids, textbooks, hardware, software, and library. There's a few more in there too, but those are the main ones for our district that's going to be compromised if this happens. Also, you can see in here, they've included our STAR revenue, which is not state aid. It's actually tax levy revenue. So I had a little meeting with Questar State Aid today about that. And the biggest concern is that I can't, like, STAR it's a different budget code. So a lot of districts, they're saying, how do we budget this if STAR is actually a tax revenue, not state aid revenue? So basically, what we're hearing from our financial experts is that it's the governor's MOE, maintenance of effort, to show the federal government that we need extra help. So they're putting that in there and then doing a local district funding adjustment to offset that, to say, hey, we're cutting aid, we need help. That's what it's looking like. So the local district funding adjustment, again, they're using the lesser of the STAR, or the COVID stimulus money. So that's down here. So obviously the STAR is less than the stimulus. So they're taking away that STAR. State aid experts are saying that if it's your STAR that they're decreasing, then we will not be able to collect our full levy. So they will take that money and we will not collect the full levy. So we'll have to wait and hear more about that. This COVID-19 stimulus is a projected increase of $900,000, but it is through the application process that matches like the Title I funds that we currently had to do for the CARES money. Excuse me.
Jess, can I ask a question?
Sure.
From here, it looks like there's a line that has numbers in red.
Yes.
Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, that's the decrease. That's the local district funding
What is it? I can't
adjustment.
read, 600,000?
Yep, 627,000.
So that means drawing from the fund balance.
No, this is our state aid. This is
Okay.
just what the revenue that we're getting from from the state.
All right.
This doesn't have anything to do with our fund balance yet.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So really, this is the start of the expense budget. You're really not going to see any big changes percentage-wise. The business administration salary, you'll see an 8.5% increase. Previously, we were able to split district district staff salary with transportation to get a little bit of aid because all transportation costs generate aid. However, we're no longer to use district employees to split, so we just moved that back to that line, and now we are able to use office secretaries' salary. So we've moved them to generate the aid. So we're still getting the aid. It just kind of bumped up this line, but it's always been there. The expense has always been there. No changes under 5% here on this page. This is a discussion page for the board, just so that to make you aware of some needs items that aren't currently in the budget. So last year, if you remember, they were included in the budget. We kind of switched it this year. These are not included in the budget, but they are needs. So these are for the building and grounds. They still really need that generator connection to the server room. The upstairs HVAC closet exhaust fan install for technology switches. That closet has a bunch of technology equipment in it, and if it overheats, it could be detrimental to our server. They would like to upgrade the tractor and the tractor blower. The gym wall mats in our gyms are getting very old, and they're starting to fall apart. Z has done a very good job of taping them together. And Greener World, the field maintenance we talked about last year a little bit. If the district could purchase some used equipment for an additional $2,000, it's only a one-time cost, and then our guys could do that work themselves every year. Continuing on the expenses, you'll see the BOCES Career and Tech raised 100%. This is an increase. Again, we just moved it out of the BOCES line for instruction and made their own code because we're always asked every year from our auditor to give them this number, and then we have to go back and try to find all the paperwork on it. So it was just easier creating its own line than continuing trying to do that every year. So that's why that's went up 100%. And then school library went down because of attrition. We got a new librarian. She's great. No big changes on this page. Which brings us to instructional needs, and I hope I got them all. So these are the needs that are currently looking for in our instructional departments. We really are trying to get that elementary summer program back, the elementary extended skills, elementary counselor and or a district social worker, Connected Community Schools program, a site coordinator. Currently, the program has been free for us. We've been very thankful for that, but we will need to budget something for 21-22. Driver's education, special education will need an elementary teacher, and a full-time IT computer repair technician. Anybody?
Just at BOCES, they're just offering driver education in the virtual realm. They're not having any vehicle driving around at all. So you can get your whatever training you can get online or through their app, but they're not having any driver education vehicles being used. They're saying that the parents are going to have to do
Parents have to test if they've done it.
So So I don't know if that's gonna work for us, or if that's what you had in mind, or, I know driver is a big thing, you might have to see kids get it.
That'd be, Ruth is looking into that, so she'd probably be able to answer more questions.
Yeah, no, I had actually already spoken with Dave Mahar about what that, and, had a couple different things, I was like, exactly what the cost was, what the description.
Okay, thanks.
Did I miss anything, guys? That's pretty good. Just continued on here, the expenses, you know, that contracted transportation, that's where that little correspondent contract used to be. It's no longer there. And then we have our serial bonds that are a little bit higher in interest payments that are due in the upcoming year. And then I did increase the transfers line to $110,000 for the capital outlay project and the school lunch for transfers. So total, looking at our projected revenue from 2021 budget to the 21-22 estimated budget currently, there's a 0.98% increase compared to the projected expense grand totals for comparison from 20 to this school year, 2021, 18.5, 21-22, 18.9. That's a percent change of 2.578%. And you can see here the difference between the estimated budget is about $654,000. And I just included a note here. You know, in the last couple of years, we have used about $450,000 of fund balance. So if we kept using that amount, we're off about $200,000 right now.
Justin, can you just clarify that we haven't
used $426,000. We budgeted
Correct.
$426,000 fund balance into the budget.
Yeah.
And we actually came in under both of those, the last two. Well, we anticipate we will come in under this year, and we did use it last year.
Correct. Yep. So we use that fund balance to offset revenues and expenses, but last year when we did that, we didn't actually need to use it. It's just there to balance our expenses and our
That's figured
revenues.
in the 3.7 property tax increase? Yes.
So a lot of people always ask, well, budget to budget, okay, but how are things looking this year? So I like to do a little quick slide. You know, we continue to work on updating our 5-year financial plan yearly. It's actually every few months that I'm able to actually provide data for it as it comes in. As the ST3 data comes in, we add it. As we get midway through the year, we add it. You know, so there's different parts of the year that you can actually add to the 5-year plan, but we do that continuously throughout the year. See, January 31st there is the halfway point, so I can estimate year-end totals by then. Actual figures change daily due to enrollment and construction failures and staffing. So, you know, even if I'm projecting out from January 31st, there's still things that will change on that financial plan until those final numbers come in. COVID-19 and how it affects year-end. There's a lot of things that we aren't spending money on that we normally spend money on. So anything from your student-ran extracurriculars, field trips, sporting events, transportation services, subs right now, we're running a really big shortage on subs. So all that stuff will contribute to a year-end surplus. We're not spending the money that we normally spend on a regular school year. So yes, we are estimating a year-end surplus this year, and that helps with cash flow, that helps with projecting down the road for when we have a pandemic or, you know, a rainy day where you need to use a little bit more of that fund balance. And also contributing to the reserves. Last year, we were able to contribute to the vehicle, or create the vehicle reserve and the capital reserve. So now that we have those reserves, it's very important to fund them so that in future years, you know, when we need a capital project, the taxpayers don't have to incur such a large cost on their tax increase. The district can help offset that. So it's very important to continue to fund those reserves. So this year, we'll just be asking the community to purchase one new bus, and we're planning to use money from the new vehicle reserve. You guys should see that tonight in your packet. And then, in addition, we continue making plans for the future. You know, we had the building condition survey that's being done this year. It's every 5 years. So from that condition survey, we'll work with SEI, and they'll help us come up with a facilities plan. And then the financial planning, we continue to do that 5-year plan and update it consistently. We've been really good on having committee meetings, our finance and audit committees, policy committee. All those committees really keep everybody in the know of what's going on, and it really helps for planning for the future. And that's the end. Is there any questions?
You got a ballpark estimate of how much it would cost that wish list that isn't in the budget, like the summer program and those things, run that list?
Individually, I might be able, but not total, no.
I really feel like if we can, in obviously COVID allowing, we really should try to do the summer program, because I think our kids need it. So I don't know when that decision has to be made or how much that costs, but I feel like it's something we should definitely discuss.
The surplus, you know about how much we have.
In our reserves right now, we have about 2.1 that's currently unassigned. That was from last year. Did I answer your question?
But we will have to budget a higher amount this year, because we're not gonna plan for that 900,000 for the COVID relief.
That's without the 900,000.
Okay.
So that's already with that not included.
Okay.
Because that is an application process, so that's really hard to put into your general fund budget when you're budgeting.
And we're still waiting for the amount it says.
Yeah, and we still haven't gotten the current one.
If there's an application process, does that mean you might get it like 6 months after the fact, or a year later, or?
Or never.
Like whenever they get around to it?
Yeah, whenever it's approved and the monies are.
I just got an email today from the state saying that our thing that went in for the CARES Act, they found something new they want us to redo. So it's almost like, rather than give us the money, let's just keep making them jump another hoop, which is why I told her that we do not want to budget CARES money into this budget.
Right.
Let it be extra so that if we get it, great. I've told you before, my thought is, I don't spend money till it's in my hand.
Right, you could get it almost a year later, and
Yeah.
it would really be reflective of those numbers.
That CARES money that we applied for in the fall actually just says it needs to be spent before 2023. So it gave you a 2-year spending period, even though, so.
Well, if they wait a year and a half to give it to you.
You've already spent it.
And you get 6 months to get rid of it, or else lose it.
Can you spend that CARES money on anything you want, or is it a specific?
We had to submit in the application exactly what we wanted to spend it on.
That's where most of our PPE stuff that we were forced to have to buy, that's where that came from, the 360 coupons. So we've already spent the money hoping that that will come, but we have a lot of people who their salaries were listed in there. They're also in our regular budget. So whenever we finally get that money, we can take that money, put it, transfer people, and then take that money,
Thanks,
transfer
John.
their salary
Great
back
job.
into the general
Good
fund.
job.
So, we
I can
have
perfect, yes, thank
for
you.
the future, and so we're really hoping that comes in. But we have to wait until they decide to finally clear us.
Yes, you ran over 2 points in the finance audit committee meeting. That was the baffles at the gym and the auditorium.
That's our capital outlay project this year.
Now, the track too, how's the track holding up? That's, we matched a few things up there, that's good to go for a while longer?
No, but it'll be updated in our building condition survey on how, like, the end of life. is what they call it, and they'll update it as soon as that's done. I believe end of life is over, and that's gonna be one of
We'll be
the,
on.
and that's gonna be, one of the first things that we'll have to look at.
I'll share for graduation in June when we had it outside. That was one of the reasons we didn't use it. We
Oh.
were afraid that it wouldn't even hold up to the chairs.
Really?
You'd like watch, bring the launchers, but now,
It had a 10-year life, and I think it was put in 07. So we're about 13 or 14 years with that track, when it should have been replaced 4 years ago.
now the state average for the tax increase is 1.23, but ours is higher than that, right?
For what?
The tax cutoff, you know, the.
Tax cap.
Yeah, so the state, allowable growth factor is 1.23. That goes into our tax cap formula, into the district's tax cap formula.
Right.
So we still have to factor in our debt and our aid into that formula to come up with our tax cap, which is currently 3.7%.
So theoretically, that's the limit for us.
That's the limit. Yeah, if you go over 3.7, then you would need supermajority vote.
50%,
Correct.
And we're definitely never doing that again.
we keep getting over 50%, but it's not 60.
Bob, the thing that I told Jess that we're gonna do is that presentation that we make on the budget at some point. I want a piece in there that we put that formula there, because the bad part is they say a 2% tax cap, so our communities think it should never go over 2%, or you're going over what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
But that's not true. Last year, we went out 118, I believe.
Right.
This year, they say 123, but when you plug it into the formula, our 123 actually equals to about 3.7. So we've got to find a way to make sure that we let them know that, so that it doesn't show that we're trying to go above the cap. We're within the cap that they're allowing us by law.
It's called the Dolgeville tax cap, and that's what it is, right?
But yes, because it would be different for West Canada,
Right.
and Little Falls. Everybody's got their own numbers they have to plug in. So I want them to see what the formula is. I never did that.
Well, wasn't last year's tax cap 1.8?
1.18,
Yeah.
1.17.
Yeah, what there was,
We only went after 2 and it got voted down.
right, and that was a majority of 2 last year.
Right.
Right.
It changes every year.
It's never a 2%.
1 year was 7.
It all depends on,
I
your
mean-
current age, your current debt, and what the
Well,
allowable
I just
growth
wondering why
factor
last year's 1.8 and this year's is 3.7.
There's no hard to understand that.
Because your numbers change, your age changes every year because of your, think about expense rating for the needs. The more you spend, the more age you get. So as age changes, or as your debt changes, we did a capital outlay project, or no, we did an emergency project last year, we did a capital outlay project this year, that all contributes to our building aid. Even though, like our capital outlay project, we're paying cash for, but that will still make your building aid go up, because you get 87% back on that. So every year those numbers change, and you have to re-input it into the formula.
It's
Well, that's
the
what's
most-
confusing to people.
It's the most
Because
difficult
you say
thing.
2% and then last
Right,
year was
it's the most
1.8.
difficult thing to explain to people, because when they hear 2%, they want
Right.
to take the number of their taxes from last year, multiply it by .02, and that's what my taxes should be this year. But that's not the way that it goes. It even changes here in our district because property values in Stratford
Right.
have a different percentage compared to Salisbury, compared to Downhampton.
Real preference.
So it's different everywhere.
Right, so
That's-
3.7 isn't even 3.7,
Right.
depending on what town you live
You know, like in the
Right.
town of Stratford, it could be like 4 or 5%. For instance, yeah, 3.7%.
And Manheim is only 2%.
Or, yeah, 1.5.
So we're gonna try to have something as best we can to show, but believe me, it might be futile because I don't think people are going to understand
No,
no matter
yeah.
what we do, but we're gonna try. Because we're going to need to go out at whatever tax cap they allow us, so that it's 50% on the vote. We can't afford to go above that. You just said it, we've already learned that's not gonna work here. So we've got to try to figure out this budget based on the numbers that we have and say, that's what we have, that's what we get to go with.
On the off chance that we did get that CARES Act money, would they penalize us in their next budget by giving us less revenue? No. Well, the reason I'm asking that question is that some of us got the stimulus, and we're having to pay taxes.
So you're not. I just give it, I'm not there.
Anyway,
You're not supposed to be treating.
there's a form that's with it that I'll ask my company. I'm pretty sure that they're asking me to pay
No,
taxes.
only on unemployment, not on stimulus money.
We'll find out in a couple of weeks.
Mine's already in the queue with the from that.
Which means he doesn't know he's getting the amount back for everything. Yes, we'll have to break that out.
Hey, I do this stuff all the time.
I set with that at least for now.
Yeah.
Nice job, Jess.
Okay, moving on to reports. Elementary building report, Mrs. Chrisman.
Good evening, everyone. Just one addition that I would like to just share with you. One of the points that I shared in the report was in regard to asking parents to commit to either remote or in-person instruction. And we certainly had an influx in January with the remote numbers, but I am very happy that we are at currently 18% of our student population in K-6 is remote, and the remaining 82 is in person. So we've kind of gone back to the, and actually boosted our in-person numbers a bit for the third quarter. So
What did we start with at the beginning of the school year?
at the beginning, we were closer to like 22, 24. So that number.
Starting to get back.
Yes, and we have, and I'm hopeful that will continue, but just getting as many students back into our classrooms is what we need.
At some point, can we start talking about bringing kids back more days?
I figured that we'd probably end up talking about that tonight because I knew it would come up. I have talked to both of them constantly about how would we bring kids back. And I can tell you from my own point of view, it would be very easy to bring more students back if the governor would just do one thing, that's eliminate the 6 feet. If he just eliminated the 6 feet, we could bring every kid back to school. Our classrooms cannot, can't take our A and B and put them together because then we have too many kids in the classroom. Which means, and somebody mentioned a couple of the other schools, well, what have they done? They've taken spaces in their building that aren't traditional classrooms and turned them into classrooms. They've eliminated phys ed, arts, music, things of that nature, and those people are part of the staff that's doing that. When I talked to Crystal today, we talked, it's certainly not a drop dead number, but if she brought them all back, we could probably find the space, or we need 7 more staff members. I don't know where we're supposed to get them. That's why I said to you before, for us, it's standard. We don't have the people to supervise our kids.
We were going to hire contemporary staff, so just June to do that.
And what budget line am I gonna get that money from?
Right.
So
We don't have a budget.
It's not that we've spent less money than we planned on spending. I don't know how much less that equals.
Yes, and then you're shortchanging what you would have left over that will make next year a little bit easier. I mean, I'm trying to project that we can fix this year easily. But what about the future? I don't want to sell the future to just take care of 1 year. So we have to try to get that, but if he would just relax that 6 feet.
That's the CDC rule, not governor.
Yeah, but he put that out, we had to put that in our reopening plan.
I know, that's the national rule.
It's not a national rule, that's a set of guidelines.
Right.
That doesn't
And there's
mandate anything.
Supposedly, there will be something new by the end of this week. Maybe we're gonna get lucky.
So for elementary students, are they receiving virtual learning on the days that they're not here? They are. So it's not even a possibility in the elementary where maybe we could do every other Wednesday or something?
That's what makes it difficult, in all honesty. In addition, just following up from Mr. Curry's conversation that we had today, I can bring physically every student back, I would need 6 additional classrooms, so I would need 6 rooms in the high school, and that's using the library, art room, and music room as classrooms, so I wouldn't be able to have instruction in those classrooms. But the biggest problem that I have is when the teachers actually prepare for the remote instruction. That's what they're doing on Wednesdays in regard to creating the recorded videos. Because the state mandates 5 instructional hours per day, our staff has to provide 5 hours of instruction, whether they're in the building or remote. And that takes time to create. And unfortunately, with 42 minutes of prep time per day, it's just not, it's not possible. I mean, I have staff here on Sundays, late nights, and I mean, everybody's doing the best that they can, but just being realistic, they have to have the time to do what they need to do well.
Right.
And it's a give and take, trust me. I want every kid here every single day. But balancing the logistics of what it would take to do that, and these were things that we had talked about even in the evaluation of our initial plan, what we would need, and we just simply don't have the staff to accommodate it.
So when you say videos, are they doing any live?
Yes.
They are doing
Right,
live.
and everyone has kind of felt, like, for example, I'll use one example, a kindergarten classroom. They have found that the live opportunities are not well attended, so you pump more time into the instructional videos. Instructional videos are created across the board. Live options are provided.
So
as
then
well.
they can go to it like as the parents can schedule it as their
Yes.
schedule.
So let me clarify. So if you are an in-person learner, you have Wednesday as a remote day, fully remote, because everyone's remote. So there's live PE classes in Google Meet, and in some places instructional lessons as well that can be attended on Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays, they are not given live opportunities because the teachers have students physically in the classrooms. That's also a question that I'm getting, why can't the kids just log in? I have observed on many occasions why it's just not. Some kids, it can work, but it can also be extremely disruptive to
Right,
a
because
lesson.
it's 2 audiences that
Like,
they
if
need
you're
to
supposed to start math at 10 and somebody logs on at 10:10 instead, oh, hold on, we have to do the attendance, it's not, it's a disruption to education for the kids that are in the classroom.
But you know what, adding to that, I know some teachers, that when the kids were missed the class because they were quarantined, they did allow
Yes,
that.
in
for
quarantine
one or
is-
two, which
right,
is
quarantine is
so
the exception.
awesome That they allowed them to
If-
go ahead
if-
and join in their lab class when they shouldn't be there, but they're not because you're quarantined.
And that is my
So it's
exception, or
awesome.
expectation
That's
for
it.
quarantines that are quarantined.
Yeah.
But the problem that I'm having now is that some families think that, oh, I'm just gonna not send my kid today and expect that they are able to log in.
Yeah.
And it's-
But I'm not sure what the difference is if you're quarantining or if you're not, if you're just home virtually.
Because if you're quarantined, you have to be home.
Okay, but what's the difference? You're still on a computer for the same class.
Correct.
But it's just like maybe
Right.
one or student here and there.
It
It's
depends
not
on
like
the
a.
learner. If you have a student that's very self-sufficient and able to responsibly log in and participate, it works beautifully. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Not having a whole classroom.
Right. And in keeping them engaged, allowing them to be able to see what's on the screen. Yeah.
Very hard.
It's-
So the
at the
teachers that
elementary
have been
level,
able to
it's
pull that
not.
off here and there is
Yes.
awesome, that they've been.
And like I said, I think
Appreciate
it
it.
worked really, really well, and a lot of times it depends on the learner's ability to be self-sufficient.
Right.
So in your thought then, there's not a reality where we could add a Wednesday in?
I don't know, and just my problem is that if we're going to take time away from teachers to produce, then where are they going to get that time to create videos that they're responsible to push out for the other days?
But only one group would come in on Wednesday, so why would, every group would just not have anything?
Correct, but we are still responsible to provide 5 hours of instruction for those students. And where you might be able to do like a reading passage for one social studies class,
Right.
an hour math lesson is hard to equate to that.
I have another, this is completely off the wall.
It's not up.
But, you know, so your A and Bs, the numbers are a little different. Say, maybe B, there's more space. At any
because they're learning topic A.
Oh, that's right.
So they would be
Yeah, I
getting the
got you.
same
I
instruction.
got you.
So if I
Okay,
was
not
more
gonna be
staff
official. I got you.
to accompany that, I could make that work.
But they're
And
doing the
especially
same
for
lesson.
for students with special needs, that is something that I would love to be able to do, but again, it comes down to staff.
Well,
And of course, also like,
Of course.
the course schedule changed, I can't tell you how many times. But
Thank you.
so everything's a work in progress. I mean, we've never had to deal with this before, so nothing is perfect. But it's ever changing, and like I said, I'm on a mission to get as many kids back for as many days as possible, as long as I logistically and safely can do it.
We appreciate it so much.
Mr. Krieger has any push to be able to get rid of that 6 feet rule, bring them on in.
I know. Thank you.
Mrs. Crispin, do you suspect you're going to get a good feedback on this parent survey?
We've actually already received all of the results, and I actually compiled the 5th and 6th grade data and shared that with my 5th and 6th grade team today. Overwhelmingly, the information that I received from the survey is very positive. Obviously, there continue to be things that we can improve upon. Communication is going to be something, it has improved tenfold this year out of necessity, but that is something that we will continue to try to do. And just getting parents on Parent Square continues to be a challenge because the information is being put there, but some families are just not signing up to do it. So, but yes, we have those results already.
Does anybody here know how expensive the high-speed internet is in Fairfield area? Because I see it's at the community building there now. You know if it went to the side roads yet?
I do, actually. I've been monitoring some of the cases, and so it's a little pricey. But I grew up on Avery Road, and it's now on Avery Road.
Wow. It's on Avery, it's on Pasico, it's on Sealy, but it's not on 119. So, really, they're not done.
It must come from a different angle than going to Dolgeville, because I think it went over Myrtle Hill to Utica. Because they didn't offer it in Dolgeville yet. Because of the effect of the competition.
Let's not
I think it came up 170 on one post.
They were working on Myrtle Hill one day, and I.
Well, could be, but John Scanlon got hooked up this summer.
Oh, did he?
I
It'll
see.
help drastically then. Community building out, and have people go there and use it too, like outside.
Thank you for reminding me.
The library area, you can use it outside, the village hall, museum, schools, or parking lot.
The BMI, that's new, isn't it?
Nope, that actually comes out every year, and
Really?
parents do have the ability to opt out of that survey.
Thinking about opting out. The 3 through 8, I understand, testing is out for this year.
We've not received
I
confirmation.
saw that, that they were
That's
considering
the time
that.
for the girls.
Consider,
Yes,
consider, has not officially been stopped yet.
thank you.
Fingers crossed.
What about this region? I mean, it's not like,
So the domino will happen, that first they have to decide on 3 through 8 testing, and then see that.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. High school building report, Mrs. Levitt.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple highlights. The first is we are piloting a program to support struggling learners who are failing to learn more subjects. We've created a safe and spaced out place for them, and actually started today. Did a brush, she got the date on. She goes, well, I'm supposed to show up for them, so we will find a place for you. And for those off days, who are struggling. Crystal and I met with NICEAD on Monday about our CSI plan. We went over all our January benchmarks. That middle school survey was part of that. Very pleased to say that one of our survey benchmarks, we were looking at our parents to do
parents have the resources that they need to support computer-based learning. And at this point in the year, we were hoping for about 50% of them, because this is hard. And our survey in January said 71% of teachers strongly agree with that. And so, we'll work on that 29% to support them and help them with that. And actually, I've already highlighted a couple of families and all that, include them in the survey. So, I mentioned before, we're hosting our vaccination clinic right here tomorrow. We have 40 staff members signed up for that. Very excited about that. And we are making the top senior announcement on Friday. Dan Getner is compiling their whole transcripts from 9th grade and announcing that we're going to be using, there's a senior classroom that they've been doing some voting material. We're going to use that so that the A&P group can find out the next thing.
So I'm gonna ask you the same question, and it may be the same answer, but I'm still gonna ask. At what point can we start getting kids in for more? So Wednesdays, whatever.
And as Crystal explained, it is a little different in the high school, and feasibly it's much easier for us. My staff would have said September, what we start the 7th, September 8th, is when they would have liked to see it with that. It is much easier on our end to make that transition. But,
One factor that we keep trying to weigh in is we bring the elementary kids in, that's one thing.
right.
If we bring just the high school kids in, then who's at home to watch the little ones while the parents are working? And that's the part that's hard to juggle. I know it's not supposed to be part of the equation, but I'm trying to understand that we have a lot of parents that depend on the older siblings. So if I pull all of them out of the home, then who watches the little ones that we couldn't bring in? That's why when we finally can get to Wednesday, we need to do the whole school, K-12.
That's very thoughtful, thank you.
You know, we just,
No, but I'm not in that boat, but that is very thoughtful.
but we have a lot of parents not.
That's reality.
I have another question, and this might involve Mr. Z. What is our policy right now with students using the weight room and the gyms, and staff using them? And so just to be completely transparent, I had 2 messages from parents related to sports, and they added on the end that some students are being allowed access to like gyms or weight room. Staff might have access to gym or weight room, and so like their children maybe are going in to use them as well, but other kids aren't, and they were feeling like it was not fair. So I don't know who to ask that to, but.
Yeah, I mean, gym class is using weight room right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and as far as the weight room goes, in the off-season condition, we have no formal weight room use right now, but what I have advised people, as long as you're gonna use it and there's one person in there, I don't have any issues with it, and that's staff or whatever, but I do not want a group of people in there.
Okay.
That's
So
what
is that, like,
basically,
during
we don't have
school time?
anything formal going on.
Nothing for it.
Nothing formal is going on. That is something that I've looked into. Canastota is the only school district that I know that's doing it. I do have their plan, so it's something I do want to look at pending all this other stuff that's going on.
Right. So if a student wanted to use it, the answer's gonna be no.
If they in gym class and they want to go
Separate from gym though, like, I mean, I don't know. if
there's
it's
no
after school or
structured
school.
chaperone time for the weight room use.
And-
We actually
and I guess-
eliminated that
Yeah.
as a position a few years ago. So
Right.
coaches were taking that over on a volunteer basis.
Okay.
So right now, I've advised against any large group gathering, but obviously, you know, there's nothing that says that they can't go and use it if there's just one person in there, and that's how I've advised it at this point.
Oh, like social distancing, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want any, you know, mixed groups in there. It's one group at one team. If you look in there and you're going, say, for example, a staff member wants to go there after school and there's another staff member in there, I don't want that going on
Gotcha.
at this point.
And for students, it's just not, there's no
Yeah,
structure.
we don't have a structured after-school time. That was all volunteer-based by coaches. And since we really don't have any off-season conditioning going on, we have not allowed that at this point.
Okay.
And Jen, to add to that too, is Dan and I have talked about the Canastota program because our kids need these opportunities. But we have set this policy that whatever athletics does, that's going to apply to everything. So that also applies to music. It also applies. So because we're using those guidelines then to be fair with that. And so at that point, we're all just kind of waiting to give that.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one quick question from Mrs. Levitt in your bullet point number 3 about starting mandatory. How many students are we talking about?
Sure, and so as I look at that across the board, we have about 7 through 12.
What's the number?
8. 8 0.
8 2.
Due to logistics of using the computer at home, it doesn't work well, or just their desire is not there, or?
And I think what I am hoping to accomplish here is that this will give more structure to students who may struggle with unstructured and independent. Because that's a huge, that our kids and our families have to grow in considerable ways in everything.
Thank you, Ruth. Dean of Students Athletic Director report, Mr. Zolkowski.
I probably won't hit too much on the dean part tonight, because probably athletics is going to be the hottest topic. I'm going to keep it kind of simple at this point. And Mr. Krieg and I have talked numerous times. The dates of what occurred are on my sheet. Governor Cuomo dropped the bomb on us on January 22nd, about 4 o'clock on a Friday. That he was going to open up high-risk sports as long as you had the approval of your local health departments. From that point forward, Herkimer County on January 28th released their guidance, which was a 7-page document that I handed out. It's in the board minutes if you want to read through it. And what I created from that was a checklist of what we had to do. At that point, we realized as athletic directors that the CSD is going to have to be partially dissolved because now we were county-based. So we grouped together our Herkimer County athletic directors and we added in CDA from the TBL since they are housed in Herkimer County. We decided to create a document of what could be done in terms of the timeline and in terms of Herkimer County public health parameters. We decided to group 3 mini seasons after much discussion. I think I've got to know these athletic directors pretty well. I created a document that I then sent out to you that showed you at this point what we consider to be the mini seasons of what we could do with elimination dates, with the exception of spring. Spring sports is pretty much locked in as low and moderate. And we don't have to deal with as many issues with those spring sports. At this point, I'm asking you for guidance. We have the toughest parameters in the entire state. When you look at Herkimer County, we have a 3% over 14-day rolling average that we have to meet. We are the only county that has such a strict, rigorous guideline that we have to meet. We were at 8.6, we're at 5. The numbers have come down. And we hope that they continue to come down. I do feel that if we can hit the mark that Herkimer County Public Health has advised us to hit, along with their other guidance, that I could safely administer athletic seasons of high-risk sports, just like we did with soccer and cross-country in the fall. I have already completed the sport-specific plans that will just need medical director approval and then submitted to county health. And that's the way we could move forward. But as a part of the document, you would need for each high-risk sport an approval by the Board of Education that's outlined to move forward. We do have a March 1st tentative start date for basketball and cheerleading if we met those parameters. So I know our next meeting is not until March 16th, so that is something you may need to consider tonight. You may want to put a delay and put something else together before that March 1st date to get together. I'm not asking you to hurry and rush to any decisions. It's not an easy thing. It's been difficult. It basically was a big, I want to say, form of excitement when the kids got the news. I think it was unfair that they got it on a Friday. It was unrealistic for them to think that they were going to jump in and play sports right away. And that's the feeling that the state got, they gave them. And then all of a sudden, the reality came in of what we have to do in order to make this occur. I understand safety is the number one utmost concern that we're all looking at. But I think the strict guidelines that are here would allow us to be able to run high-risk sports in a safe manner.
Awesome.
Okay, any questions?
So here's what I'm thinking. If we can give a go, no go on the season layout and then have a special meeting prior to March 1st with Dan presenting the sport-specific plans.
I have them done, yeah.
I can get them out to you tomorrow.
Well, when you wait till those legal, so that you have to meet first.
So that's 2.5, 3 weeks away.
But I'm saying we have to wait almost till the rate is on the street to even talk about it.
No.
We can decide, if
You
we
can
hit
decide.
that rate, then let's go
Yeah.
for it.
West Canada pushed through last night. The plan that I put together here, you just changed it to West Canada on the top. And they approved the 3 seasons and approved the basketball. He took the sport-specific plan, which I have done, and just have not, it was completed over the weekend. And he said to his medical director, it was approved by Dr. Grace today. It's already being sent to Christina Kane. If you hit the 3% mark, along with the 15% hospital capacity and other, subjective things that are in there, we could be ready to go. As soon as you hit that. If you don't hit that mark, the season never occurs.
So conversely, if it goes over 3% for very few days, then the whole county's got to shut down again.
It would go,
Yes.
the 3.5, we go back to off-season conditioning, which basically is like gym class. Skills and drills. Yeah, you could separate into baskets. You can't have any contact. I'm just using basketball as an example here. You can't form any drills that would cause contact. You have to keep the spacing as much as you can with the athletes. That's what you'd have to go back to if your average went. They actually spell it out as 3.5 in the
Are there any
manual.
rules about school that's on a quarantine? They would be off limits too, right?
If your school goes on a quarantine,
Like,
so it's
right.
shut down to in-person learning?
Like Pathways was on a quarantine recently, so if the kids was on a team there in that school, they wouldn't be able to play with their
Yeah.
play. for
Yeah, that's-
2 weeks
yeah.
or 10 days.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah. There's only one occurrence of that I knew in the area, and that was with Utica Academy of Science during the prior soccer season. And they had a case within the soccer team, and they shut down the rest of the season because of that, because of the quarantine. That is something that could happen.
Well, like for instance, recently, 8th grade was quarantined.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
They still are.
Still are.
The rule is with the state, if you shut down to your in-person learning, so say if we had to completely shut down, you can't have the athletics.
Of course.
But if you're fully remote and have been fully remote as a part of your plan, like I'll just use Little Falls as an example, they've been fully remote and their high school CBA is fully remote, they don't have to follow that same guideline. They could just have a student quarantine because they're not shutting down to in-person learning.
I had asked a question about testing and what it would cost the district to test our athletes.
I'll defer to Mr. Freeman.
I got your question, so I contacted Christina Kane. Technically, the tests are free. It's getting them that will be difficult because they've been sharing them around. So the part that's difficult is you get the test, but then what do? Somebody's going to have to administer it, and I think if you saw from Rome, it cost them $40,000 to do a set of testing and pay for the disposal of those things. So there's a lot to it. I haven't gotten all the answers yet, but On one part, it says that it would be free, but I am always skeptical when somebody tells me something's free.
Because Oneida, part of Oneida County Public Health Plan is that all the athletes and coaches have to be tested bi-weekly, is it?
I believe it's only coaches.
I think students too.
That could be a district plan, but when I saw the county for Oneida County, I know it was just coaches.
Are they also the county that has changed it a few times?
They don't have a number parameter like we do for positivity that they have to follow, but they have some other parts that they're looking at in their guidance. But that was one of them. And talking to the AD at Westmoreland, they were figuring out how to test the coaches. They were not testing the athletes.
And we can't do anything like pool testing like colleges do? Where it's not the
We're
individual?
We're not, the school doesn't test, so we have to have somebody come in and do it. We're not a testing center, that's River County Health. So I would have to try to arrange with them to come here, and I'm sure that would mean they'd have to do the same arrangement for all the other schools. Because that was one of the questions, well, what if we do it, and 5 of the teams we play don't? So we're still gonna have people that, well, yeah, our kids are tested, but theirs aren't. So there's gonna be some inequities no matter what you do.
So some of the team are gonna be A kids and some are gonna be B kids, right?
Just like we did with soccer in the fall.
Are they gonna have trouble getting here for practice because of the babies thing?
I honestly, my honest answer to that is, if the kids know they can play, they're gonna be here.
I would make a guess right now, if we told them they could play basketball next week, they'll be here. The kids that are on the team that wanna play, they'll be here.
And the older ones will go pick up the younger ones.
And we can't provide transportation for, let's say, a Monday practice to bring the B group in. They've got to find their own way, just like Thursday, Friday practice, they're all set. But then again, if basketball practice is until nights, let's say 7 o'clock, they always go home and come back anyway. So I've always found that the majority of those kids, they take care of themselves.
Scott, can you hear me out
Yes.
here? I've got a question. I'm looking at the high-risk sports from the Herkimer County Public Health. And it says here, if the 14-day rolling average percentage positively is above 3.5, then activities must be restricted, okay? You can't have the sports. So I went on the internet and I brought up Herkimer County CLVID totals. Today, they're running 6.8. How can we possibly have any kind of a sport now when we're so far higher than what they're saying in the health department? That's my question.
We can't until we meet that 14-day rolling average of 3% positivity rate or lower.
I thought it was 4%.
Well, that's what other counties are. Ours
We're
is
the
3.
strictest county in the state.
Yeah.
We're
We're
also,
three.
we're also a county that has 20 hospital beds. So that goes into that
That goes in the format to get
calculation.
that 15%.
15%.
Available space now.
But that's Mohawk Valley,
So
not
it's
Herkimer County.
3%, but it could go to 3.1, or it could go down to 2.9. Remember, it's a 14-day average. If it reaches 3.5, everything has to shut down until it comes back down to 3. So you could start the season, it could be done after a week.
The 3.5 is just a day, that's not even the rolling average, right? That's the way I read that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I can read it off the document.
We could get the season started and it could be stopped.
It says if
The
the,
numbers are there to stop everything. It's just a matter of whether the OI is given to play.
Could be a waiting to even get started with the numbers too.
Right.
Well, and so with the one set of sports, use basketball as the example. That new season that they're talking about, it starts March 1. If we have not met 14 days at 3%, they can't start on March 1. Then we go to March 2, and then March 3. If you notice in the plan, if it gets to March 15th, and we still haven't met that parameters, that season's now done. Now we move to the next set. There's 3 seasons, now you go to season 2. So anybody that's in that group, that sport's done for the year.
Are you predicting that it might just be a skills season because of the logistics, the time frame's so short, and maybe a couple schools can't play for some other reason.
I'm not into the numbers, but I have been watching them. I mean, our positivity has gone from 8.6
Right.
on a 14-day down to 5% today, using the New York State Department of Health metric that they tell us to go to over 14 days. At that rate, as long as we've been continually dropping. So I don't know what's going to happen. I can't predict what's going to happen positivity-wise over the next 2 weeks. I can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow as far as that goes. To just go back to the 3.5, just want to make sure you understand, if it goes above the 3.5, what it says here, if the positivity goes above 3.5% on the 14-day rolling average, then activities must be restricted to individual or distance group training or organized no low contact group training. So if you were in season, let's say basketball was able to start, then all of a sudden we went above the 3.5, then you go to the off-season conditioning metrics, which is very similar to gym class. You couldn't have competitions, you couldn't have scrimmages, any of that kind of stuff. You could just have low, no contact kind of training.
Better than nothing.
So it's a very complicated kind of thing, with the numbers. I can't predict what's going to happen. It's been dropping. I can tell you. I've been looking at it every day on my phone. I go right to it. About 2 o'clock it comes out every day.
We had a big wave in January. Our big wave here of January last year, it hit the same pump this year as it.
We have the holidays, and I don't think anybody.
Yeah.
Numbers are going down.
And now, we just had Super Bowl Sunday.
And his training is very.
And that is what's in fact, my mind, this variant that's coming up.
I asked Christina about that. There is information in the guidelines about that, but that's subjective. She would have to tell us that all of a sudden that strain is starting to be prevalent in our area, and she could shut it down from that point. We don't need a number for that. She could just say, that's it. They can shut it down because of that strain. Those strains, I should say.
Do any of these rules apply to like traditional gym classes? Because for younger kids are held to a much stricter standard than the basketball team.
Our band students are held to a stricter standard than the basketball.
So I mean, theoretically, the little kids start at the least, they're having the strictest rules. That's what people are going to say in the community.
Yeah, but I think, and I will always come back to this, and this is my belief on athletics in general, there's an inherent risk when you go ahead and play an athletic sport, more than anything else. COVID is now in that mixture of an inherent risk. That's why there's a consent form that they're going to have to sign.
It is an
Parents are going to have
option.
to
It's
sign.
not like in school
Yeah.
or park, it's an option.
I can't option out of gym class. I mean, I can do virtual, but I don't have to play a sport. I am taking an inherent risk anytime I play a sport.
Mr. Zukowski, that's a good point. But here's the other point you've got to keep in mind, is that COVID is here.
Yeah.
And what is happening is that can be transmitted to old geezers like me. And we just lost 3 people up where we live. Donnie Randall, Betty Lou Stack, and we also lost Harold Brown. COVID. Now, you can take all the risk you want and put it on the students, but you're not looking at the rest of the community.
These are not gonna be available, people can't go in and watch these games.
No spectators.
Listen, when you walk into the Big M and get groceries, you're intermingling with people you do not know and what their contact with this virus is about. No one has mentioned about the community and the impact it's going to have on them if we get a situation where we do have some kids that get it. And this is what I think you should be relating, is that the community is involved in this too. The risk isn't, don't just say, when you play sports, you're taking a risk. I agree, I play sports, I know what you're talking about. But I didn't have COVID back then. Neither did my teammates. And when you're interacting with people, you've got to look at the community and how you're impacting them. Please don't. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to disagree with that.
Anything else? But I think the community is involved in this too. They should be aware that now if we're gonna play Westmoreland, or we're gonna play.
No, we wouldn't play Westmoreland.
Well, whoever we play, are we gonna play any out, do we play any
No.
schools out of the county?
No. Flat out in our metrics, the listing on the top of my paper that I submitted to you, are the Herkimer County top, we call it. The only school that I didn't put in there was CDA, because they're normally in the TBL,
But
and we invited them over.
Currently, CBA has a rare road is quarantined, Pathways is quarantined, but Canada's on virtual to the 22nd. So we're talking about schools that have an outbreak that we're gonna go play again.
We had our outbreak too.
Yeah, we've had some here, so.
We had a lot, so we're on the up.
Yeah.
The unknown.
I realize it's a difficult decision, and I don't envy the decision you have to make. But I also have to be an advocate for the student athletes
Right, and
that I have
that
to
is
deal
your
with every
problem,
day,
we appreciate
that I see have social, psychological, and physical issues right now. I'm just letting you know that. It's discussions every single day.
Mr. Zukowski, you gotta remember one thing. The school can't solve every family problem that's out there. And that, since I've been on this board, it looks like that's what we try to do. And I want to do that. I want to help people. I don't, please, I'm not trying to get boisterous and over the top with my rhetoric, but I'm just trying to tell you that somewhere reality's got to kick in, and you got to say to yourself, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
And then the parents of this community have got to take some responsibility for their own actions and their own students and their own children. The school does a fantastic job. We feed them. We sometimes clothe them. We keep them out of harm's way. It's great. I don't want anything to change, but I just don't want us to get into a situation where we're pushing the envelope just to satisfy a few deserving students. And let me tell you, I was an athlete, my whole life, and I love athletics. But I also know that I don't want to contaminate someone in the community with something that I might have picked up inadvertently. And I'm not trying to be boisterous or over the top with you. I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, it's your point, yeah, and everybody's,
I mean, because another thing, how many, if we okay sports, is there a percentage of students that'll go, okay, well, we're gonna go virtual because we don't want to take the risk in the schools, and now our rate from 28% from 7 to 12 might go up to over 30.
Right, can I share that the biggest reason when I asked the students why? Number one is COVID. Number two is, well, I thought sports were going to start, but now they're not, so I'm just going to say no.
It's a bad time for everyone. This is when you find out who's the mentally toughest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be corny. But, in life, you're gonna find all sorts of obstacles you're gonna have to overcome. This is just the pain for students in this school. God forbid anybody should get cancer and have to fight that, or the COVID. This Harold Remsen spent 3 weeks with a vent down his throat. It doesn't hit everybody the same. My wife has asthma, so I have a special thing here for that. I wouldn't want her to get it because it would put her in the toilet. And I don't want to see anything happen to her. I love this school. I respect every administrator here and staff, but I just want to make sure that the community is kept safe too, not just to make sure that we have a few kids to get to play the sports that they should be playing.
And maybe that's why we need to give a little time for you to get input from the community.
Well, that's why at the beginning I proposed that we could take a vote on the schedule only. Dan could get us the sport-specific plans. We could have a meeting near to March 1st, see where everything's at, have a chance to get more community input. I know Jennifer and some people have received some already, but that gives a few more weeks to get more community input to see what the community wants, because that's what we are, a representative of the community.
We're not, actually. We are elected by the community to make decisions for the school. We're not like senators and congressmen where we're meant to make decisions decisions that the community compel us to make. We have to make, just
Well,
like the cuts.
right.
The community wouldn't have told us to make the cuts,
Well,
we had to make them.
I'm compelled to let the parents decide what their kids do.
Yeah.
That's my stance on the sports. If they want their kids to play sports and we meet all the county department of health criteria, then that's their choice.
And that's a good point, very good point.
Yes.
Another one for this promising thing is that Ruth is telling us that virtually our whole staff, school community of adults are going to be immunized soon, which before that wasn't the case. We have a lot of stragglers that might not have their second shot in time. Now they're going to be close to their second shot.
And the high-risk folks.
Because those are the
Be
people that
getting
can get
their
it from a kid
vaccination
and give it to
soon.
the community. Now they probably are less likely to have that happen.
Yep, very good point.
Really.
Yep.
That makes me a little more, less, uneasy
Yep.
about it.
I'm all for voting on the schedule and this very well put together plan that I know that you put a lot of effort into. And sincerely, as a parent, thank you for always advocating for our kids. And I'm gonna say something, that was my parent answer, okay? So the best thing for the Williams girls is that sports start. I'm not convinced the best thing for the school is to start on 3-1 with an indoor sport. But I would be willing to have that conversation when we're closer, we look at your basketball plan, we make a decision. Something we're not talking about is the fact that we want kids in this building, and every time there's increased exposure, we are getting more kids in quarantine, which means kids on virtual. I know we're doing our best. Our best compared to our area school districts is lacking greatly. We don't have enough live instruction for our kids because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the parents, like we just talked about the child care stuff. We need our kids in this building. And the more that we send out exposures to sports, the more possible quarantines, virtual days, everything else. That is something that needs to be part of the conversation. But I'm all for voting on this plan and then having a sports-specific conversation as we get closer. I don't think indoor sports is the way to go right now. Fall was tough, like we agonized over a fall decision, but that was easier to make because we were outside and it was very well done. This was different.
Right, but the soccer also, they were supposed to wear masks, and a lot of the pictures show that they weren't.
But
They
what
had
is the
them on,
rule
but
though,
they
like
weren't.
when they were
Yeah, I
running,
know, but
they
you're running
flipped.
down the field full, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
come down.
And listen, I feel like I can't grocery shop with this mask on sometimes, so I get it.
Can't see the food.
Yeah.
The thing to remember too is you can still approve the plan. That does not mean that you have to allow winter sports. You might say that Dolgeville is not participating in the winter sports season, which is basketball, cheerleading, and volleyball. You can say, we are not allowing our kids to play. We'll reconsider when we get closer to the non-contact sports. So then you have time. You don't have, you can agree on the plan. You don't have to agree to let them play.
Can I ask another question? I watched the West Canada Valley meeting last night, and they kept referring to competitive cheer. And I think their athletic director said that they weren't going to actually do it because there's no facility.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the cheerleaders can't sideline cheer?
No, it would be called sideline cheer.
Oh, so they
It
can
would be
still do
sideline
it.
cheer, yeah. The plan would be the 4 home games for both boys and girls. They would be spaced out doing sideline cheers. They would actually be the only fans, the cheerleaders.
Right, right.
And all these events would be live streamed for the people. that
We would make an
don't know.
attempt, but when you have,
It's hard.
yeah, there's a whole method to
Well, you
that.
don't have enough equipment if you got
Yeah,
two
yeah,
things going
yeah.
at the same time.
The only thing that Dan and I talked about, that some of the other schools aren't, we don't want spectators. But we felt that on the senior night, I think he said, for instance, basketball has 2 seniors.
The boys.
So that would mean 4 parents walk in the door, they go through their senior stuff, and then the parents would be asked to leave, unless they separate them in the gym. But that's the only thing that we decided that we would allow the senior parents in on senior night. That would be the only night that we could.
But honestly, I mean, you could still have like a spectator
still have plenty of space.
But we have decided to have no spectators as the county.
The whole county,
The
all
county
the
pot
schools,
has decided.
the same thing, there won't be people in the gym, just the two teams and the referees.
Well, and I just thank you for thinking of the seniors. I'm going to get a little emotional. These kids have been robbed like worse than any other year before. And any opportunity that we as a school can celebrate them or include their parents in anything, we need to do it. And I'm emotional because my girl is here. So to sit here and have to talk about whether or not she can play her 12th season of basketball or not is really, really difficult. And again, I just want to say out loud, one more time, that my mom's decision is very different than the Board of Education decision that I would make on that. Okay, done.
I'm glad no, I'm serious.
I'm glad if we don't vote on it tonight, she might let me in when I get home. I'm not sure.
Mr. Zolkowski, this is an excellent report,
It is fantastic. You put a lot of work into
A
it.
lot of
We
work.
appreciate it so much.
and I respect you for all that.
I have a question. If the rate is like 3.5% March 1st, does that mean you could do skills stuff
Yes.
for a while?
You could
Do a
technically
whole
do,
season of
you
skills.
could do skills right now.
With just our kids and
You
no
could do
outside.
skills
Why
right
can't
now.
we do
Now,
that, then?
I am not asking for that. I would, yes,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
could,
theoretically, they need that a lot too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of.
But that's what, you know.
Growing in that sport.
Why can't we have that conversation?
We can, but the conversation would be, at that point, are we gonna have that? That's a whole different staffing issue. You brought up intramurals, there was also the off-season conditioning, there's a whole other set that we need to talk about with that,
Okay.
if we're gonna do that part.
So if the rate stays a little bit too high, then alternate could be skills season.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact,
Which would be beneficial.
modify, if you, in the plan, that was one of the things that modified is skills and drills with the possibility of a contest. We were worried about no spectators being at a facility and an injury and with a modified kid. That was a concern that we had, and that's why we didn't authorize that as a county group.
If we did start sports, would we still have to have this crest still in the picture here for?
Yeah. Yes, I just talked to him the other day. Yeah, he's great. He'll jump aboard, help us out whenever he can, however he can. Yeah, he's good with that. He just doesn't do in school. We have to, if an athlete is injured, to minimize exposure, they go down to there. He doesn't come in just multiple schools anymore. He can.
Shall we vote on the schedule?
Yes.
I think a motion to go on the schedule with following conversations to be held before March 1st to continue the permission for individual sports.
Individual sport.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Thank you. Any other questions on anything in that? Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Get us that winter sport specific plan.
Now,
Yeah.
is there a good place to go look at these specific bids? So you can find it without going through like
Yeah,
25 menus?
if you just go to New York State DOH, if you just Google that, positivity rate, and you'll click on, it'll say 7-day, 14-day, you gotta click on 14-day, and then click on Herkimer County, that pops right up.
I think it's under,
Herkimer County, like you go on.
A dashboard, no, that's what they told me to go to, I'm just
I
following what
think it's
they.
actually, it is under DOH, but I think they call it New York Forward.
Yeah, I can,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Maxwell, I will forward you the link for it, so all you have to do is click on it.
I've heard controversy that there's two sites and what figures are different.
Yeah.
So AJ, or TJ at West Canada was saying he finds figures different numbers when you go on these sites.
Oh, yeah. I'm just, the one that they sent us is, Herkimer County sent us.
You just gotta make sure when you go on there that you're looking at the 14-day,
Yeah.
because what automatically pops in is the 7-day.
Oh.
One quick question before you leave your
Yeah.
ski Manlius,
Yeah, athlete cat.
How's that work?
He's technically is a pseudo employee for Manlius Pebble Health. They eliminated their program, so the board approved Mr. Risley as her ski advisor.
So he's going up there?
Yeah. Well, no, they meet at the same place when they do skiing. She drives to the same ski area.
Oh.
How
She
is
just-
Andrew doing since his
Fine.
share of the?
And there's also, and there's one other, we have one other, yeah. We have two ski athletes.
Thank you, Mr. Zolkowski. Building and grounds report, any question on the building and grounds report?
yes. Still haven't seen the bill for the tractor repair.
Nope.
Hopefully you won't either.
That's good.
Let's hope they're not watching.
Yeah, don't try to find that.
Gym doors, how are they working out?
The new one?
Well, you did some repairs,
Yeah.
and I just wondering, good?
Yeah, they're nice.
They're nice, right?
Yes, Dave and Wayne tweaked them, and then they had some replacement ones. Yeah, they're very nice.
They lock.
Yeah.
That's even better. They're very attractive.
Old wood doors.
Did we ever get all the new LED lights put in the gymnasium?
We didn't get them all done. Dave and Wayne are slowly replacing ones that failed.
I want to ask a question. He had mentioned something about a scissors lift to access those fixtures. How
Still
are we?
asking. He's still asking for it.
Is there any way he could just rent one for a month or a week and just get his jet work done?
He can, Scott, you might be able to talk more about this, but he's saying that the cost of renting one is very expensive, and it would be most in the interest of the district to buy one because of how often they use it than to continue to rent one. He's saying basically it's a waste of money to rent one as much as they need it.
They $10 help alcohol, like you
What's-
want to do it.
Has anybody ever looked at a price?
He has, yes.
Have you got it from him?
I don't have it in front of me, no.
Well, sometime at a meeting, just give us that. And did we get everything squared around at the bus garage for not to that?
That's the next one.
All right.
Shall we move on to the transportation report?
Sure.
Questions on the transportation report?
I don't have it.
No?
I do.
You let us talk about anything, get it over with.
Jeff, this question of Joe's about one of our drivers helping out the town, can that just happen?
No, not contractually. The problem is, his shifts are very specific to the bus runs. So if he misses a shift, he can't make up his time for that run.
So is he paid hourly or salary?
Our driver's a salary.
You have to do some other, the health insurance issue.
Yeah.
He would be
Because
under.
he'd be working half a day and still getting full benefits.
Correct.
So this would happen only during like big snowstorms though, or all the time? This is like a regularly scheduled.
Yeah, so basically, they would meet, what I am understanding from Joe is that they would meet him consistently as it snows in the morning, or, the same time his morning customer. So, right now, I talked to Joe, must be before or after he submitted this report, and he said, as of right now, the driver has decided to only help when he is not working for us, and that's fine, as long as he's not, as long as he's completing his hours with us, he can work for them whenever. It just can't be at the same time as his brother.
I was just thinking that probably the bus drivers like having the roads plowed, so maybe if we can help.
Why don't you just let them plow on the front of the bus?
Yeah, can he do both?
Well, if they can't get the roads plowed, we want school anyways, and then he can go plow.
That's true too.
The lift, has that been,
It's not done yet, no, that was part of the emergency project, well, it's an emergency capital project right now, we're waiting on DP approval.
for that? We got it for the heaters.
Yep, we got it for the UVs and we got it for the dugouts. So now we're just waiting for the emergency project and I believe, I don't know, did they do the capital outlay in the, or is that separate?
It's part of our, with the construction manager,
Yeah. So we're still waiting on the emergency project, which is the bus lift, and then the capital outlay, which is the baffles and the roofing over the auditorium.
Someday, I really would like to push for a nice office for Joe Stepp. I've been up there,
I go past that.
and that situation just isn't the most advantageous for,
Yeah, I think our bus garage definitely needs a capital project. There's no doubt about that.
and, like I said, when you have the privy 5 feet from the desk, that's not good.
We had a project a few years ago, scheduled, but Joe actually said he didn't like the plan, so he cut it. So now he's gonna have to wait till the next one.
Thank you.
Revenue analysis, expenditure analysis for January is included. Any questions for Jessica on that?
I just have a question on real property tax. We have a budget total of $4,126,000, yada, yada. And we got year-to-date, we've got more than we budgeted for. So why do we have a minus?
So if you look at the bottom of the report, it actually tells you, if you see a negative, yes?
Yes.
There's a key, and it says, the negative is a difference, it means received more than budgeted.
And that's a negative?
It's more than we budgeted, so the difference, it's a difference.
Oh, I see. No, well, you budgeted for 4.1, and we got year-to-date 4.2.
Yeah.
So we got more than we budgeted for.
Because, if you remember, we actually had to pass through a contingent budget. Remember, we had to start with a contingent budget in July.
So that's where that money.
So that's the contingent budget, and then we got the tax cap approved afterwards. So that budgeted number did not include the increase in our tax rate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no other questions, need a motion to approve the reports as presented. All in favor? Capital project update, Mrs. Radley.
Just real quick, there's been some, we kind of talked about the second one last board meeting, but I just wanted to give you a formal memo of where we are with those capital projects. Good news, as you probably heard already, that SED has approved our $1 million unit ventilator project for the upgrades of the heating system and fire alarm. And unfortunately, though, there is a couple changes. The fire alarm update. So the original goal, after talking to our groups at the different community centers, was to try to make the fire alarm point addressable. So the main problem that we heard was that when fire trucks come up, they don't know which road to take, whether it's, where to go, because it's not point addressable. It's zoned, though. So our current system is zoned. So it does say in this zone. So they really should have an idea about where.
County's got to distribute that information to them. I think that's part of the problem.
So it's just a little bit delayed, is what you're saying. So it's a delayed system. So.
Off the wrong road by accident, and then started hurrying.
Well, if they get a call and it just says 38 Slauson Street, Dowdle Central School, they come flying up there, don't know where to fire. If the county doesn't tell them it's in this zone or that zone, or they don't know that zone or this zone.
Like that zone might be down that train.
Right, they might not know this zone, this is where it's pointing, which zone is where. So the system that the community really wants would actually say the address of the problem, the issue.
And what the goal on this whole thing when it started way back before Jessica even worked here was they just need to be able to differentiate to the county, who can then relay it when they call the fire department or the ambulance, high school side or elementary side, so they come up the right road now that the road doesn't go all the way through.
Maybe if the sidewalk up the road well.
They can jump the
They wouldn't
sidewalk
have to
if
go
there's
through
a
that.
problem.
They did, Salisbury, when the auditorium was out first, Salisbury actually went over the sidewalk and it cost a bunch of money because they wrecked a bunch of stuff on their truck.
So
So with the current budget, it's a $1 million project. We call it that for a reason. There's only $1 million to complete what we need to be completed. In order for it to become point addressable, it would be approximately $250,000. That amount just is not capable under our current budget. So they are going to install module, or they're going to install a panel instead of,
Junction box
yeah,
and new
there you go.
relays.
That's the word I was looking for. We're gonna replace the old panel with the junction box and the relay, but we don't have enough money to install all new modules and a new panel. So.
Well, that's fine, because that was part of the problem too, is we were still using an old system and a new system, and the cards aren't replaceable anymore, and Dave was kind of moving old parts and keeping them on the shelf until he needed them.
Dave is completely fine with this. I talked to him about even submitting this for the board packet, and he said that that's what he suggested when originally planning this part of the project anyway. It kind of got a little complicated when we started to reach out to the community, different community centers, because they really wanted that point addressable system. The community had asked for that. So that's why I really wanted to bring it up to tell you guys that we will not be able to get that point addressable system. It'll still be zoned. It'll just be through a junction box. I know you have a question.
Do most of our other area schools have that? Or-
That's not state mandated. You don't have to have that system. But what's going to happen is they're going to update that other stuff so that in future projects, it's not going to be, it's going to be an easy switch over to that point addressable system if we can fit it into a different project.
But do we know if that, most of the area schools have?
I don't know if schools in our area have that.
A lot of schools don't have this issue like we have that the road does.
Separate road. Most of them have something that goes all the way.
Right.
Just want to say it wasn't an issue. Now it is.
Right.
Certainly it doesn't make that big a deal. If there was an emergency, certainly they would drive under the sign.
There's
Crying out loud, I've done it 100 times. That certainly cannot be the
Well, there was a
issue.
cutoff and that went private lower.
Yeah, that
Drive
cannot be
over
an
the
issue.
car.
If there was a fire emergency, I'm sure they could drive right over that.
And then the second bullet there is just that in the beginning of the project, we had really wanted to replace 30 unit ventilators. That was the total number of the 59 and 63 units. I think I got the right date.
54.
54 and
1954 was the
60.
original.
What was the 60? Or was the 60s one in there too?
Yeah, the wing or the wing.
Like the middle school wing is from the 60s.
So the 50s and the 60s unit ventilators was a total of 30 units. We won't be able to replace the full 30. Right now, they are anticipating only replacing 8 of those. However, the majority of the work will be done, the piping and all of that stuff, and it's just the unit ventilators that will not be, the new unit will be there.
Yeah, that asbestos is expensive.
I've got one crazy question for you. We're down to 8, so if we replace 8, we get to that magic number. Are they going to be able to function, because we were going to switch from hot water or steam to hot water? Are those units going to be able to make that transition from steam, because they'll be in a steam system, with the rest of the units? And
No, we're running all new piping from the
No, no,
boiler
no.
room, and we have 2 systems now in the boiler room. We have a steam boiler, we have 2 steam boilers and a hot water boiler.
so these are going to be 8 of the hot water boilers?
Correct,
So we're not even touching the steam thing.
correct.
Didn't know that.
Well, it's not that they're hot water boilers now, they're gonna run the hot water pipe.
Right.
And these will be, the new units will be ran on the hot water boiler.
Okay, and so will they will be in coexistence with the steam?
Correct.
Will the steam ones be able to take the hot water too? The old units?
They won't need to. because
They
they're
don't need
new
to, they're
pipe.
still on steam.
Pipe-
They're
You're
the
just,
steam.
you're just replacing the ones on the hot water side. How many are on the steam side? Never mind, that's a question I get. Not
Can
necessary.
you run and go count those?
Not necessary. I'm just wondering.
the other different.
I think all of the units are steam currently. All the units are steam. They're running new piping and insulation above the ceiling, I'm pointing up because that's where it's gonna go.
Right.
From the hot water boiler to the eight classrooms that we're replacing.
Okay, so
So
they're
they
strictly
will be on
water.
hot water.
Okay.
The other ones are going to remain on steam
Steam,
until
right.
we can replace them.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the third thing is, we've, previously, last board meeting, we started to talk about the benefits and negatives of the energy performance contract. And I just wanted to mention, we're gonna continue looking at that because it might alleviate some of the current budget concerns. And then lastly, Mr. Kriega, Mr. Redmond, Mr. Condon and I, we met with the two companies that submitted proposals for project managers. They would oversee our capital outlay, our emergency bus list, and the $1 million heating project. So it is our recommendation after those two interviews that we had, that you hire CNS companies as our project manager for that work.
Well, other companies consider it just something.
Two companies submitted proposals.
It was in the paper, it was an RFP, and only two companies submitted proposals in response to that.
Yep. If there are no questions.
Do we have a dollar amount? What they're gonna cost us?
We do, however, the big discussion, between all of us, the RFP that we originally put out was for a part-time project manager, somebody part-time on site. I think it was half days, 3 days, half days, 3 days a week or something like that. But the concern was, from Dave, who's worked with project managers before, if there's not somebody on site every day to watch over this stuff, there's gonna be really big problems in the future. So Dave was really advocating for a full-time project manager. And if you look at the numbers, we went back and got quotes from both of them, saying if we did, need you full-time, what would the cost be? And CNS was cheaper.
By a lot.
Yeah.
And if the numbers continue the way they are, basically we'd be paying an extra $10,000 for a full-time instead of a half-time. Because a lot of the stuff that you're being charged for won't change with the person that's doing it, like the person back at their building, who takes all the information, plugs it in, and then sends her a report. We don't have to pay extra for her because she's just a couple hours a day to input anyway. So it was really only a difference of about $10,000 for a full-time person. The other company wanted to charge us another $50,000 or $60,000.
And I can tell you that the reason why we all chose CNS, and I'm going to talk for Dave, Wayne, and I, the reason why us three really liked CNS was not had anything to do with the money. We didn't take that into consideration after the interviews when we discussed the pros and cons. CNS seemed like they were a little bit more advanced in tracking the project. You know, they had showed us a system where we had direct access to pictures. I had direct access to the budget that they're holding for us. You know, so they just seemed like they were more on top of what would be happening here than the other company. And I don't mean that.
Maybe the other
Correct.
company could have done that, but that's not what they presented.
But that's not how they presented it. You know,
So based on just the two interviews, I mean, I asked them, so what do you think? And it was 3-0 for CNS. It wasn't even an issue.
And they've worked in schools before, that's their forte?
They did our project here when I was here, which is why I tried to stay out of it. Because I honestly would tell you I'd be prejudiced between the two companies. So I stayed out of it, other than to interview in case they needed information. But they worked with us before, as did the other company.
Right.
So it's not like either of, that was another thing that Dave was worried about, was the other company, some things slipped on the last project. So they thought it would be better to try somebody different. So that's basically the two major reasons why they decided on the one compared to the other.
Any questions on that? No other questions on that? We need a motion to approve CNS Companies as project manager for the described projects. All in favor? BOE policies for second reading and adoption, drug-free workplace, prohibition of discrimination, harassment, and bullying, and non-discrimination in education services.
If I could, before they vote on those, if you remember last meeting, Bob asked about policy 7202, specifically on page 2, section number 4, Dignity Act coordinators. An issue that he had is in there, it says the board may appoint additional Dignity Act coordinators. So just quickly, last week or last month when he did that, I was confused too when you then turn to section E on the next page. When you appoint principals at your reorg meeting in the summer, you are automatically appointing them as your Dignity Act coordinators. The reason why you're allowed to vote or appoint others is because if you look at E, that's if either of them are the ones that somebody has an issue with, they can't research themselves.
Right.
You have to have a neutral party. So that's where appointing another Dignity Act coordinator will get into place. Either you give me or ultimately Joe the power that if we need somebody neutral, let him appoint one, or you come back and say to you, we need another one. So that's where the problem was with when he asked about those. So the policy itself is correct. It's just, I had to go back and reread it to figure out where he was having a problem with it. And that's where it is. So you're not really appointing others unless you choose to.
So there are no other questions on the second reading. We need a motion to adopt policies listed 1 through 3.
So moved.
All in favor? New business, resolution, authorized transfer of funds to Transportation Vehicle Reserve Fund, $150,000.
Does anybody have any?
We have it.
Questions?
I feel like this is fantastic. Like, this is something we would, like, instead of bonding a bus, we're gonna be able to buy a bus.
We're gonna buy a bus.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's what I can't say when the last time Dallas has been able to buy a bus.
If just a quick history, if you remember back when we looked at the money that was left over from last year's budget, we were allowed to keep 4% by law. We were well above that, I think about 11%, if I remember. We held on to that in case we got stuck hurting because of the 20% reduction that we were threatened with. Since we haven't gotten that, things right now look good, we still have to try to do something with that money, which is why 3 or 4 months ago, you created 2 new reserves but did not put any money in them. Now we're starting, we're moving from that extra money we had, $150,000 out, putting it into the bus reserves, so that then you can buy the bus and then replace the money into the reserve from leftover money that you have. I'm figuring you're saving somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year in interest on the bonds from the buses. Now you're purchasing them outright and not bonding anymore. So the other thing that would happen is all that money we're paying for these lawyers to go out with the bonds, we won't need them anymore either. So there's actually more savings than just the interest.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard me, but I hate things.
So that's why the first, so we'll still be above our 4%. And a little bit farther down the road, we're gonna probably decide on a number and move it into that other account before this year is over, unless we use some of that money to perhaps purchase some of those things you saw there. It might not be able to go into the budget next year, but if we've got a little extra, we can buy it right now with this year's money and get them out of the way and not budget them for next year. So that's down the road. Right now, all we're worried about is moving $150,000 out of that unrestricted fund balance into this reserve. That's what we're asking for.
Any questions? If there are no questions, need a motion to approve, authorize the transfer of funds to the Transportation Vehicle Reserve Fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Just if we had the money up front, would we get a better deal on the purchase?
I wish.
No, I'm serious.
I don't think so.
No, unfortunately, no. We'll get a trade-in value that we're trading in, but there's no.
The bus not coming in for money either way.
We get a little bit more money on the trade-in because it's gonna be sooner, it's gonna be before August 31st, where normally the bond kind of helps us up. So they are giving us a little bit better value on the trade-in as long as we purchase the new bus before, I believe it's August 1st.
Next order of business, resolution to purchase school bus.
So, passenger,
64
64.
64 passenger.
it's really a 23 now, right?
21.
Hopefully we get back to regular.
I believe it is on the spot.
A lift bus, you say? So if someone had
For
like
special needs.
a wheelchair, they could, is that what we're replacing, one that has it already?
That's a good question. I don't know if we're replacing one that currently has it. I just know that we need one, so, that's the concept we are doing.
If there are no questions, need a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Annual meeting notice.
On your annual meeting notice, Sandy said to me, you know, we have to, because she has to post this. I need to know where are we going to hold the meeting.
I guess you're virtual.
Well, virtual, so if it's virtual, we're all set. We've been virtual on our board meetings because Scott's trying to keep to where they're telling us we have to distance and everything else. I told her, let's just put down the auditorium just in case. We can always hold it there even if there's just us, but what if it does switch to that, and we've announced it's gonna be here, then we have to switch it to there, so that's why I told her, just put the auditorium. So that's where we'll hold it.
If there are no questions, need a motion to approve the annual meeting notice. All in favor?
Aye.
District calendar for 2021-2022 up for discussion.
Okay, I gave you the calendar so far that's been created between all of the different schools and BOCES. Now, here's what we're down to. The major vacations that you see in front of you, February, April, Christmas, Thanksgiving, they're all standard. Everybody, their calendars are the same. The only differences are going to be this. Currently, you see that we've listed September 1st and 2nd as superintendent's conference days. We also have a superintendent's conference day listed on October 22nd. We also have a superintendent's conference day on November 19th. And we have a superintendent's conference day on June 24th. That's 5. We can only have 4. So our argument right now is how do we settle how that's going to, one of them's got to come out. So one of them is, are we going to keep the 2 and then take out the October one?
October, because you already get Columbus Day off anyway.
Well, the Herkimer, I just received the board-approved Herkimer BOCES, and they are having a superintendent's conference day on October 22nd, as quite a few other schools are. The difference with the other schools is that they do not use November 19th as a superintendent's conference day, full-day parent-teacher conference. So they're able to basically run jointly. The only way we could get out of that is if we save the superintendent's conference day But then the 19th couldn't be a full day off of school, or it would have to only be a half day. So that's part of what I have to discuss with the principals, is are they in favor of that? Which means then the 18th and the 19th would have slashed through it, where it's a student early release day, and the teachers would be doing parent-teacher conferences both afternoons, not a full day. And when I talked to Crystal about it once before, probably wouldn't be an issue on the high school side, but the elementary side, there are quite a few parents who need that morning, so would we be able to figure out another way for them to get parent-teacher conferences in? So I'm not asking you to vote on this calendar tonight, just that's what we're down to. The superintendent's conference days on the 1st and 2nd, the 22nd, and the 19th, and how we eventually do those. We will have this completed and ask for your approval at the March meeting, which is plenty of time to be ready for next year. Okay, so right now, this was only just an example of what we're down to. Any questions on those? And looking at the Herkimer BOCES, all of their weeks, vacations, et cetera, are the same that we have here. So it would not impact our BOCES kids who have to go down to BOCES, because they're going to be off the same time we are. So it won't impact our BOCES program at all, except for that 119, if everybody else is in school, or the 22nd. So that's the only thing we have left to figure out.
Okay, pandemic plan, first reading, and public comment.
Okay, pandemic plan. The route to have this plan, by the law and by the rules, I had to create the plan, which we did. There's a group effort. Once we created the plan, I had to present it to our bargaining units. I presented it to them by including them because they were all part of the safety committee. So we held our open meeting with the safety committee, which had teachers on it, and Wayne and Dave, et cetera. So that's how I covered both of our bargaining units. The next thing is ultimately to have the board approve this. But first you have to do a first reading like regular policies, and then you have to have a 30-day public comment period. Tonight starts our public comment period, leading up to our March 15th or 16th meeting. That's more than 30 days that the public has an opportunity to reply to this. So it will be on the, as a draft on our website. So it allows them their 30 days chance to comment on this. You would then approve this on a second reading on March 16th for us to have it by law on April 1st on our webpage as an official document, just like our other emergency plans. So that's why we're kind of in a tight window here. So tonight is just your first reading. There's a lot of stuff in there for you to digest. As with the public, I would hope they wouldn't have a comment on it because there's not much in here I can change by law anyway. So they gave me this large, I guess you'd call it a template. And we just had to input what we actually do here in Dolgeville compared to somebody else that might do something different in some of these areas. So this is all basically, it was put together by lawyers that came out of a BOCES and sent to us. Anybody got any questions on the plan itself to this point? So this is our first reading, and we will ask you, the only thing I didn't include on here is there is an appendix after this, but I just haven't decided on the appendix if I'm just going to put a bunch of links, which will save pages, or put the actual picture that came out from CDC, like the one that you saw in here, where if you've got this, then follow the area, and that's what you do next, and then follow the arrow, and that's what you do next. I can either have all of those posters there, or just put the links, and let people click on the link and see them if they want to. That's probably where I'm going, because it'll save about 10 pages. But I did not think that you needed to see that tonight, but I do want you to know there is an appendix that goes to this. Okay.
BOE policy, first reading and review, gender neutral single occupancy bathroom facilities.
As you can see, I just got this February 2nd, and they've decided by law, we have to have a policy in place by March 31st. So, this was the one that they suggested, which, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. I jokingly said to Dave, I said, Dave, we need to identify all of our single entry bathrooms. And once we do, based on this policy, we have to have a sign on the door. We kind of have some signs there already, but it doesn't matter, they're telling us we have to put a sign. So jokingly, well, I don't know if it's jokingly, he sent me this. It's a boy and a girl, it's somebody with a half a dress, it's somebody in a wheelchair, it's a child, it's an alien, somebody with two heads, and then a warrior, and then the bottom says, whatever, just wash your hands. This is not what we're going to put on the door, but I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
That's hilarious.
So we will have to come up with some signs, and I'll probably ask Eric from SCI, where we got our pandemic signs, to suggest a couple of signs. I think we only have 4 bathrooms.
Yeah, and I actually already started, the process of signage. We have folders on one of the bathrooms right now, so Dave just recommended it's a 8 by 9 by 8 sign, so that fits in the current folder. So none of the ones at the sign, we got them from previously, have that sign anymore, so I will have to reach out to Eric just with the sign that we want to see if they can create it for the sign, or for the folder that we're in.
Would we have to have one at the bus garage too?
If it's a single, yes.
Yes.
There's 5, thanks, I didn't even think of that. Thank you. 5.
What about the porta
Those are already, it's single use, it's a single use.
Okay, next order of business, nomination for BOCES Board of Education, BOCES annual meeting, which will be Thursday, April 1st, virtual. One representative from this board will be in it, everybody else can watch it on the live stream. 3 vacancies on the board this year, but we already got our guy on there.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's only
Yeah,
one
I
guy.
had 3 schools that were listed. Generally, you try to get somebody from one of those schools to go in, so. Bob, how many more do you have?
How many more years?
Years.
Just got on.
2 more.
Yeah, Mike Clements, he's new with the Frankfurt Skylar. Bill Miller has been there for like eons.
Well, he's not from Little Falls, so Little Falls is not right now.
They keep putting him in, he's from West Brookfield. That's where he lives.
Yeah, the person doesn't have to live in a district, if the district puts them up to represent them.
He represents the society, so they think they have to be a board member of some school.
He likes the power.
Yeah.
Well, he was
Eventually, they didn't want him in West Bloomfield anymore, so he recruited himself in those.
They don't want him in his own school.
Tom Shipsky's a very nice man.
Oh, excellent.
He's the president.
Yeah.
Okay, information only. The BOCES 2021-2022 proposed administrative and capital budgets are included.
A point on that, on the BOCES administrative budget, which date are we listed for? March 16th. We have 2 choices. I told Sandy that I would ask you tonight to solidify it. I told her we probably have them in person, but you are eligible to have a virtual meeting to have them present to you. I need to let her know by tomorrow.
In person.
Maybe we text Sandy.
Sandy's been here
Because
for a
all
I hear a
month.
lot of that.
He's basically one of the members of this board.
What, I mean, are they, how is this schedule look? I mean, do they prefer one or the other?
They said they would come here if you want, this is their opportunity to present to you their budget that you have to accept that goes into our budget. So this is her opportunity to sell her program.
Right.
You can either have her here in person, and every school district in the Herkimer BOCES has a different date. So she would go to ONDY one night, she'd go to West Canada. So there is a date for everyone. Ours is March 16th.
Which is our regular meeting.
Yep.
So you can either have her here, or we can do it virtual. It's entirely up to you.
That could be good for her.
I think we should have it.
I can say let's have it.
Well, yeah, and if they can't do virtual that day for some reason.
So you prefer in person unless the weather is bad?
Right.
Yeah.
If it's coming weather, they might as well do it.
Scott, you all right with that? I'll tell her we would expect it in person
Yeah.
unless the weather is really bad. We
Absolutely.
would then let her know that she could then send it to us virtually.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Never know in March.
Everybody can ask Michelle a question. We're quite low compared to the rest of the school districts. Is that because of your diligence? Because of the services we're not requiring?
We keep most of our students in this.
I'm gonna take my head up to it for that, because that's helping us a lot.
It's not needed.
Well,
I mean, they
it's a
are
team effort.
very, very accommodating. It was a big shift when we
Right.
started in this direction a few years ago. But I can't say enough good things about how much the teachers have really changed what they were doing and how receptive they have been to feedback from me, from building principals, from the special ed support staff, because it really is working.
Well, you can see that in the budget. And if you look at the breakdown of whether, and I get to see that every month, there's a lot of schools taking a lot. I mean, I'm not saying they don't need to do it, I'm just saying for some reason we're able to accommodate our students in a better way for us and our people. So I take my hand up for that.
I'm not taking away from Michelle, but this is only the administrative budget. This is not including your program. This is only administrative budget.
I know, but the administrators and the teachers are the people that handle it.
Right.
This budget, so they have their whole administrative budget. So that's, you think of our administrative budget, you've got.
Sandy's salaries, all of their directors, secretaries.
Well, and a lot of it has to do too with Sandy Sherwood, because Sandy has taken a direction that BOCES hasn't had in a few years, and that's trying to consolidate departments and try to get rid of a little overhead and principals and superintendents that they don't need down there. And I think it's helped because they realize that the biggest thing that's happening at BOCES is the decreasing student population. And, yes, and I think that's, for all of us, that's a point to
So
keep in mind.
that's why our budget is much lower, because they take the full administrative budget and then they divide it by each district RWADA, which is their weighted average. So our student population is much lower than some of the other districts, so that's why our total is less than other districts.
Because we don't need this.
Correct.
But you also need a particular clientele of student to go there too, right?
What was that?
You need a particular clientele of student to go there too. I mean, there's, no, okay.
Board forum. Mrs. Huddleston, you still with us?
How you doing, everybody? I'm gonna be short, Scott, not gonna be long, okay? I first want to reiterate what Mrs. Christmas said in her elementary report. Our student success starts at home, and appreciate the families for their efforts and support. And I thank all the families, okay, for their support. On to the high school report. I want to thank Mrs. Rocha and Mrs. Presta-Giacomo for the artwork that they had, and that is going to be displayed in the Mohawk Center of Arts in Little Falls. I also want to thank Mrs. O'Carey, the Catholic Charities staff, Jennifer Walrath, Adam Jones, Sarah, for focusing the 6 weeks of social emotional learning with their students. I also want to thank Mr. Zakowski for all the time that he put in to doing a wonderful athletic report. I also want to thank Jessica for a great budget presentation. Thank you, Jessica. And again, I want to thank Sandy and Matt for the 4 months putting this together for me so I could be semi with you for a board meeting, but it has been great. So thank you, and I should be home in about 3 or 4 weeks.
After your second shot, right? She got her first shot.
What about?
Okay, I did everything Mary Lou said. Plus, I'd like to wish Jennifer a happy birthday today.
I couldn't imagine a better way to spend my birthday. So thank you for scheduling.
Tell your husband you gotta celebrate tomorrow too now.
I haven't seen him since yesterday, and I won't see him till
Well,
tomorrow.
you know when it happens in the cafeteria, the kids have to sing to the person, so maybe we ought to
I'm ready.
sing. I don't know. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jennifer. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, and just to give you the satisfaction, here are my blush cheeks.
And it's also Scott's anniversary today.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. 13 years of what is good. I take it. That's all I have.
Just because you're the historical director, how do you have all these dates?
I
It
know.
was on Facebook today. I know how old she is too, can I say it?
I don't know.
42. 42 today.
Nice job. I was guessing 29.
My mom said, I don't know how I have a child who's 42 years old.
Hey, my parents had one in 71. That's no lie.
I would like to say thank you. You know what you do, I know what you do, and I live it, and I am so, so grateful for all that you do. Welcome, Mr. Gilbis, again. Thank you for attending. Sandy, thank you so much. Appreciate everything that you do, and the board as well, of course. I wanted to read something that came in on Drew's report card. I have 3 children, and everyone knows they're at all 3 levels. Two of my children are top students. One is now failing. He just got inducted in the National Junior Honor Society. He is a 4-sport year student that is struggling. My middle daughter is off the charts. My youngest daughter is also struggling, and she's in 2nd grade, so her not being here is really, really hard for her. And we're doing the best we can. It's very, very upsetting and very frustrating. And we were very, very nervous about her report card. And this is the comment that was on her report card. Your child is not falling behind. He or she is surviving a pandemic. Life as we know it has been turned upside down. Although the grades on this report card, may seem alarming, please know that we recognize how difficult this year is, and we see the hard work and effort that your child is demonstrating. Thank you for your support and dedication to her education. Audrey, keep up the great work. Keep working hard and trying your best. That's from Mrs. Gagne's 2nd grade team. And for the teachers to have empathy towards the parents and to understand our parents are mothers, they're working moms or fathers. They have the same thing we have going on at home. They have the same struggles. They get up on a Sunday morning with their kids running around like crazy, just like mine, and they have to pull all this together. And the amount of work and time and energy they put into it, along with all of these parents, people that don't realize what it's like to actually have young kids going through this. They are used to structure, and it is so incredibly hard. And the mental health that goes along with this, and the teen depression, being stuck in your bedroom from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon with, since they were 4 or 5 years old. The depression, the drug use, the probably suicide rates, all of this really, really affects our kids more than people. I think unless you have a child that's living this, you have no clue. You have no clue. And it is really, really hard. And for the teachers and the staff, all the entire staff that can relate to that, I appreciate you so much, because this is freaking hard. And we are fairly average. I can't even imagine how hard it is for people that are already struggling. We're struggling. Everybody's struggling. And I'm so, so, so grateful for everything that you guys do for us. Thank you.
How do I follow that?
If I knew that was coming, Craig, I'd have held her till last.
I know. I got nothing to say. No, just, everybody's doing good, and thank you, everybody, just like everybody said. Go ahead, Bob.
I just want to say everybody here has my utmost respect for what they're dealing with. And I really do understand. I don't want anybody to take me the wrong way when I get off. It's just that I'm passionate about what we do here. And I want the right thing for us. Well, I wanted to mention one thing. Jocelyn Wright, student here at Dolgeville, she was showcased in one of our newsletters for BOCES. Lady wants to be an actress or something, I guess, singer. But I wish we would say a little bit more about BOCES students here. It really is, I think, an important part of our school district. And just to shed a little light sometime on what they're doing and accomplishing, I think would help them out a lot. Because I don't think they get the accolades sometimes that, our sports people or top scholastic people get. But they are doing a fantastic job down there at BOCES. I think they're taking people that may have, some issues with learning, and they're making them productive people in this society. And I'd like to have that showcased a little more here at our board meetings, if you would. Other than that, the school looks great. Nice to see Mr. Gilfus here from the North Country. How much snow do you have up there? You haven't had a chance to say anything.
About the same.
And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to say a few words.
Pretty much ditto all the way around. I hear you, like loud and clear, and thank you for saying that, because parenting during this time is about 20 million times harder than it is normally, and it's pretty hard then. So every single staff member that we have, and I can think of 1,000 examples for my own children, where a teacher just takes a second to recognize something or recognize effort, or, a great example is, well, I don't want to say too much about my own kids, but just the little extra that they do can make such a difference to kids and parents. I know we had a little message on a report card that really made a difference in our family too. So I hope that we as a board do the same for our teachers, because they are struggling as well. And I know they want to get back to school. When I made the comment that Dolgeville's best isn't as good as area districts, I don't want anyone to take that as a criticism. We are doing the best that we can. We really need that 6-foot rule thing changed so that we can go back to doing what we normally do, which is way, way up there, gold standard. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our staff and our parents and all of you for the encouraging words, because I think everybody needs it right now. And Mr. Z, keep going. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Just reiterate everything that everybody else has already said. It's the perfect old class. It was said everything. But thanks to the teachers, the administration, the parents, the students, everybody involved in the community in trying to keep these kids educated, because it is a struggle. give them an education level we'll normally give them. So just appreciate everything that everybody's doing to try to help that. And that, before we go into executive session, just need to know if anybody has any questions for the principals on the personnel stuff. If not, we'll release them when we go into executive session.
Put it in her
will
purse.
accept
We'll
this.
put her in her purse and she'll have to clean it out when she gets home.
Okay. Let's
Anybody
roll.
got anything else?
The personnel, not about or no?
No, I asked you before, that's why I left
We just have to prove them.
Yeah.
They're all just ones coming off probation.
And approve the non-resident request.
So we need a motion to go back to regular session.
Second.
We gotta wait for the stream.
It's cold, it's been Mr. Running.
You get a new vehicle?
Huh?
You get a new vehicle?
Yeah, December.
Oh, I missed
Are you
something.
leasing or buying?
I bought it.
How can you switch brands?
Because they wanted a deal on this one.
Oh, you got a better deal?
Okay, Dreams On. CSD, CPSC minutes and recommendations. Need a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion, second.
God.
Personnel actions, there's no 15A. 15B as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Additional non-resident request for 2020-2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Upcoming meetings, regular meeting March 16th. We're gonna have a special meeting before that.
Yeah.
We don't know this date yet. Full season annual meeting, and then the regular meetings leading up to the budget vote in May. If there's nothing else, in a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.